Hey everyone, Ben Yunson here. Today we're going to take an expansive look at a chord progression that's been used frequently throughout many different types of music. And certainly if you've played contemporary improvised music, you'll have heard this progression many times. In its most basic form, it sounds like this. This is called a 1-6-2-5 progression. You'll have heard this progression many times, and in contemporary music, it's often referred to as a turnaround. So today, we're going to look at 20 of my improvised lines occurring over a total of 10 variations on the 1-6-2-5 turnaround. And after learning these 20 improvised lines, you might just be able to apply the 1-6-2-5 turnaround to any piece of music. You can learn all 10 of the variations I'll be discussing on the 1-6-2-5 turnaround in my new masterclass, 20 Improvised Lines Over Turnarounds, at bensguitarclub.com. And you can also get it as part of the BGC bundle, which features all of my masterclasses and mini lessons in one package. Also, make sure to give this video a like so that we can push it out to as many people as possible. And consider subscribing so you don't miss any of my playing videos, lesson videos, and discussions about music. Everything that you'll hear me playing today will occur in the key of C major, and if there are any modulations present, will always resolve to the key of C major. If we were to play all of the chords that occur diatonically within the key of C major from 1 through 7, they'd sound a bit like this. Our 1 chord, C major 7, our 2 chord, D minor 7, our 3 chord, E minor 7, our 4 chord, F major 7, our 5 chord, G 7, our 6 chord, A minor 7, our 7 chord, B half diminished or B minor 7 flat 5, and back home to our 1 chord. Now that we've established all of the 7 chords that occur within the key of C major, we can take chords 1, 6, 2, and 5 and create a 1-6-2-5 turnaround that might sound something like this. In section 1, we'll be looking at our most consonant variation on the 1-6-2-5 turnaround, and it's going to sound something like this. This variation on the 1-6-2-5 turnaround is particularly consonant because our 2 dominant chords, A7 and G7, feature no altered tensions except for a flat 9 in our A7 voicing, which is, of course, a B flat. As a result, when you hear me soloing over the A7 chord, I'll be utilizing the A Phrygian dominant mode, which sounds like this. And over our remaining 3 chords, we'll be utilizing basic major and minor modes derived from the key of C major, particularly the C Ionian mode played over C major 7, the D Dorian mode played over D minor 7, and of course the G Mixolydian mode over G7. Let's play through exercise number 1. In section 2, we'll be focusing on a variation on the 1-6-2-5 turnaround that's very similar to what you heard in section 1, but with a small difference. It sounds a bit like this. In In this variation on our 1-6-2-5 progression, you might have noticed that our 6th chord, A7, has been substituted with an E-flat diminished 7 chord, which sounds like this. E-flat diminished 7 occurs a tritone interval away from A7, and this is a very old-fashioned way of applying a basic tritone substitution within our 1-6-2-5 progression. You'll particularly hear this type of tritone substitution occurring in old standards from the 1920s and 1930s. Over our E-flat diminished 7 chord, we're going to be utilizing the E-flat whole half diminished scale, and we're also going to utilize the E-flat diminished 7 arpeggio, which over 2 octaves sounds like this. Let's check out our first line over this variation of the turnaround. In section 3, our variation on the 1-6-2-5 progression will sound a bit like this. In this variation on our 1-6-2-5 progression, both of our dominant chords, A7 and G7, have been voiced in such a way that they are now both 13 flat 9 chords. For example, A7 becomes A13 flat 9, and G7 becomes G13 flat 9. In accordance with these two voicings, we'll play the A half whole diminished scale over A13 flat 9, and we'll play the G half whole diminished scale over G13 flat 9. Let's check out our first linear idea occurring over this variation of the turnaround. You can learn all 10 of the variations I'll be discussing on the 1-6-2-5 turnaround in my new masterclass, 20 improvised lines over turnarounds, at bensguitarclub.com. And you can also get it as part of the BGC bundle, which features all of my masterclasses and mini lessons in one package. I hope you enjoyed this in-depth look at how to solo over what is probably the most common and the most useful turnaround of all, the 1-6-2-5 turnaround. I'll see you next time.